The Shadowed Otaku does customarily review anime fanfics, especially, as of yet, Ranma and Inuyasha show origin. However, over the last few months, he has noted a disturbing trend in the Avatar fanfiction community and a proliferation of bombard the site from orbit fanfics. Why, he cannot be entirely sure. There are some people who watched the movie and just did not sympathize with the Na'vi for who knows what reason. Some, I think, felt that they were too perfect, they were Mary Sue's. Others found the ecological message to be forced down their throats. Witness the author, fittingly, filming this video in a park via his phone. That should give you some idea. That wasn't really planned, just wanted to be outside for a bit. But the Shadowed Otaku does feel that it is very relevant. Surprisingly appropriate. There's many Avatar fanfics that the Shadowed Otaku could probably assault, but one in particular, more a phenomenon than a fanfic, it was Sons of Humanity by TJ98. It was reconcepted, and it was deleted and reconcepted out something like 2 or 3 times. Currently, there's no copy of it of any kind available on fanfiction.net or elsewhere that the Shadowed Otaku is aware of, at least. For some reason, the author of that fic had a strong dislike for the Na'vi. He tried to make them as bloodthirsty savages. The first time, at least, that the Shadowed Otaku did observe the fic being deleted, then reconcepted, seemed conspicuously close to someone pointing out something that made the heroism of the protagonist in it seem ironic. The fic, it must be explained, deals with a heroic effort to save humanity. Never mind that the movie never says anything to give us indication that the fate of humanity depends on the success of their actions at Pandora. We're supposed to believe that it does. That Jake Sully was selling out humanity just for a chance to run along with some savages. That's the way this author wants us to view things. And every time something pops up by accident that makes the hero of his protagonist look ironic, he deleted it and reconcepted it, thus making his whole premise seem incredibly laughable. It was so desperate to make us feel ashamed for not rooting for humanity. The current work of this author that is available, you will all find a link to it below. The Outcast Clan. The Otaku hasn't really made much headway into getting into it, but you will note that this fic is pretty blatant in it. If Avatar itself was blatant about its message, this fic is even more blatant. And to someone like the Shadowed Otaku, who is currently dabbling in Shinto. The over-the-top Christian fundamentalism depicted in this fic is really annoying. There is no indication whatsoever in the movie that there were any missionaries at work amongst the Na'vi, or that the RDA would allow missionaries to set themselves up. Of course, this author didn't care, I am sure. Why am I not allowing him to write whatever fanfics he wants? Should he not be allowed to? Isn't it okay for people to disagree with the Shadowed Otaku? You could argue that. However, if you write an alternate universe fanfic, you should at least be aware it's an alternate universe fanfic. This author does not seem to want to be aware of that. He seems to believe that his fic makes sense in universe. In fact, that fics depicting the Na'vi as good guys are the ones that are really AU. And that is what the Shadowed Otaku cannot countenance. There is no disclaimer of any kind saying that he's aware that it's a AU fanfic. The fic is basically written to... is basically a more elaborate version of the ever so juvenile, we're going to bombard the Cypher Orbit and kill all the Na'vi on his author section on fanfic.net. It's filled with his apparent distaste for smug and arrogant utopian races such as the Na'vi and elves, especially when it's combined with a green Aesop, which we see with both elves and the Na'vi, of course. And he wants to see them taken down a peg, or 1,000 pegs. Unfortunately, the Shadowed Otaku finds this fixation psychotic. The Alchemist clan, which the Shadowed Otaku supposes he might as well get into a little, basically displays what seems to be the author's attempt to darken the Na'vi, in spite of the fact there's nothing to indicate anything like this in the movies, by saying that a large number of individuals who couldn't pass the rite of passage were declared outcasts, and they and their descendants had to live hunting for scraps, starving perpetually. But now the Shadowed Otaku, but now all of them are joining forces with the human imperialist. Oh, and they're converting en masse to Christianity, of course. Making the fic feel incredibly preachy. Another thing that the fic Sons of Humanity had problematic to it was, notwithstanding the protestations that the author made via PM that the Na'vi never signed the Geneva Convention, it's likely that Jake made sure that the people at Hell's Gate were never subject to any kind of direct retaliation by the Na'vi. The fact that this author blatantly engineered atrocities, powerful descriptions of people being tortured to death, just so there would be excesses that needed to be avenged. Unfortunately to the Shadowed Otaku, they looked engineered and created just for the purpose of giving them something to punish. It was ridiculous. Stupid. I suppose that for those people who want to see mass slaughter of Navi, they probably thought it was a good idea. The Shadowed Otaku does not. I think it is easy to say. So in conclusion, TJ98's Avatar fanfics altogether are a little more than a juvenile protestation of what he sees as the Mary Sues depicted as the Na'vi, and his attempt to darken them to make them more realistic. And in spite of the possibility that they might actually be Mary Sues, the Shadowed Otaku feels that the fic was ultimately, that these fics are ultimately juvenile and only appeal to the losers. There was a line once on an RPGnet.net debate that I think sums it up pretty well on what the issue may be. Avatar pits technologically plausible, manly man technology that, while they're mercenaries, invoke space marine tropes naturally against a bunch of people who can, if one feels so inclined, be viewed as allegorical for a group that a popular American view sees as cowardly or unmanly. This pit of the people fighting like soldiers being defeated by a bunch of tree-hugging savages evoked a massive counter-reaction of "that's not how it's supposed to go." If you ask me, if you ask the Shadowed Otaku, it is how it's supposed to go. So TJ98, you can write alternate universe Avatar fanfics if you want, but please have the courtesy to acknowledge they are alternate universe.